for a discussion about the future of mobility. I'm joined by Peter Berger. He is Director of Business Development with Woven Planet Holdings. Hi, Peter.
Hi, great to meet you.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. So with the onset of so-called carless cities, I know we're not there yet, but it's certainly a trend, and the restricted urban driving rules we're seeing more and more of, where do you see the future of mobility?
So the future of mobility is really focused on adapting to the changing environments and trying to improve people's quality of life. We're thinking about right size, right time, right vehicle, dealing with issues of urban congestion, the reshuffling of the supply chain and rethinking of middle and last miles. And we're really looking at a broader expansion of mobility, logistics into a world where you have a much broader choice of whether you travel to something in order to do your daily business, or your resources travel to you. So that's going to fundamentally rewrite not just simply how we live our daily lives, but it's going to allow a lot of people to rethink how we interact with our cities.
Now, how is it going to affect the freight side or the delivery side of like e-commerce orders and the like? Will vehicles be restricted within certain areas of cities and be unable to deliver? Will there be alternatives? How will they make that work?
So I actually believe that there's going to be a shifting trend. We've already seen it in a lot of European cities with congestion charging, different times where vehicles can enter and exit. But we've also seen another trend where people want it today. They want it now. And you want to press the magic button on your laptop and receive what you need today, as soon as you possibly can. So how do you accomplish both those goals? It specifically goes to thinking about how to restructure the supply chain so that the middle mile can shift quite a bit and the last mile can be highly flexible. There's still a huge portion of the world that doesn't have next day delivery. Frankly, there's a big difference between sort of next day and next week, and in some cases next month. And so what we're working very hard at Woven Planet to do is develop an ecosystem that is able to tie together a whole series of capabilities to allow for last mile delivery in congestion urban areas, to develop overnight delivery in areas which actually don't have overnight delivery, but also facilitate the movement of people as well, because sometimes as brands and retailers reinvent themselves, a portion of it is going to be delivery, but there's still going to be a portion of our society and ourselves that are going to want to enjoy the ability to go somewhere. That the activities of not just simply being in your home. I think all of us are tired of being trapped in our homes and maybe just want to go out.
We're still going to need to be mobile. I mean, in some way.
Yes.
What form that
Absolutely.
mobility takes is the question, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, but so I guess we're looking at a mix of autonomous vehicles, in some cases robots, and the application of technology in so-called smart cities. These are all factors, are they not? We will see in the future.
They are. The idea being is that, obviously we want to be able to facilitate really, really high quality deliveries in short order. That's why we're here at the Manifest conference with one of our investments, Neuro. But we also want to see greater efficiency of the movement of people. Woven Planet itself focuses not just simply on the movement of goods, but also the movement of people and the data that facilitates it. And so as a result, we're looking at last mile delivery by autonomous vehicles, but also human travel by autonomous vehicles. We're looking at logistics that are facilitated by broader swaths of software and the data facilitating it, which is a big focus of Woven Planet. But lastly, we really see the reinvention of the urban environment to make it more kind to humans, and be able to have greater choice about when to move and how to move. So the idea of, do you want to go shopping? How easy it is to go shopping, particularly if you're disadvantaged, elderly, unable to drive, younger people who have yet to have the capability of moving. You could have a choice in autonomy, or if you're very, very busy or don't feel like going out or conditions don't let you, those same services can come to your doorstep. We see that as two sides of the same coin.
All of this, of course, is bound to have a ripple effect. And I'm wondering what adjacent industries you see mobility and logistics transforming next.
So a large part of the adjacent industries that are being transformed already are how goods move within the logistics supply chain and where do we set up our logistics hubs. There's been an increasing need for, again, overnight delivery, real time and e-commerce, but also industry is expecting that as well. Toyota essentially invented a lot of the just-in-time delivery systems and inventory management through the Toyota Way. And we see that as essentially carrying through to a larger part of the world itself. So focusing on how do you position materials to be delivered efficiently, but also use that space well, be able to move things in a very dynamic way and adapt based on how networks are organized. And then finally, looking at how do we apply broader lessons about building infrastructure and chains to be able to say, oh, how do we rethink what we're currently doing while maintaining the same level of touch, feel, and quality? These are big components, and those will cascade down not just simply about how people build their businesses, but how people live in their neighborhoods, how people live in their cities. You know, do you have a car in your garage, or is essentially your car separate? Do you have a warehouse where everything is centralized because it's just simply limited to you, or can you have dynamic co-shared warehouses? All of that is facilitated by software and essentially automation and other capabilities.
Well, which leads to the question, I mean, given the rapidly evolving landscape of logistics, what types of partnerships do you think might lend themselves to the biggest success in these transformations?
So the way we look at partnerships, it's about shared goals rather than structure. One of the big challenges you always run into is that you're like, oh, let's do it this way or let's do it that way. We want to work with people that have a whole series of shared goals. And one of the things that's going to be very interesting is there's a lot of cross-organizational and cross-industry shared goals. Carbon neutrality, as well as managing climate change, focusing on efficiency and quality of life, not simply for your customers, but also for your employees, which means thinking of ways through time, hours, and organization. There's also a series of components that we look at as not just simply like industry to industry, but how do you integrate with consumers? How do you integrate with media? As well as how do you integrate with essentially the larger functional financial environment that's dynamically changing with things like cryptocurrencies and such. So I think the amazing thing about logistics and mobility is there's going to be so many fundamental changes over the next decade or so that we will only see sort of the outlines of it today, but the future itself is going to be quite dynamic and frankly, incredibly user-friendly.
Are we talking mostly about cities, or do you see equal types of transformations in suburban, rural, and ex-urban areas?
So we look at actually both of those at Woven Planet. Obviously, there's the tremendous gains because of the consolidation of the world's population into cities. But there's still a tremendous amount of need within rural environments. And frankly, as fewer and fewer people live in rural areas, at least full time, the services go down. And in fact, autonomy as well as other types of technical management of resources will allow you to essentially have better and better services and remote environments than you do today, and frankly, be able to address people that are not only geographically challenged, but personally challenged, whether it's physical capabilities, mental capabilities, their economic abilities. Bringing safe, inexpensive, highly efficient solutions, not just simply in the urban areas, but to people in all walks of life in all sort of housing environments.
Transformative change in mobility is ahead. It's going to be really interesting to see. But Peter Berger of Woven Planet Holdings, thank you so much for offering your insights and look into a crystal ball and some realistic appraisal of where we're going in that area. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.